Hey folks, okay, so I've not recorded a video in a few days, maybe several days. It's Saturday the 24th of February 2018, and I'm just sitting in my room again. I got done reading another chapter of Thermal. I'm basically caught up with where where the class is at this week. I read one more chapter and I'll be basically a week ahead, and then I think if I get through chapter 11, I'll be 3 weeks ahead, so trying to do that, basically part of the whole turning things around process. Because I'm kind of banging my head against the wall because I got to the last like two chapters and I saw these things that were basically on the exam. And if I mean I think I think I passed the exam definitely. Got a decent likelihood of that. But it's one of those deals where like if I had been on top of the reading to that extent, not like a chapter or two behind it as it turned out. Um, I could have just gone and flipped to that page in the textbook because it's open textbook, open reader exam, and then been like, okay, look at this diagram, and it would have made things a heck of a lot easier essentially, and I would have been more sure of my answers. Um, Not sitting here going, oh, I think I passed, or my likelihood is that I would have been like, okay, most likely a B or something like that. I would have had that kind of a certainty. But so let's see. I'm wanting to mention, NOFAP less and less in any of my videos. Moving on from that, and besides, like, apparently, it's not so much that people are being censored for making videos about that specific subject, um, but it's like, I guess since YouTube, they switched their monetization and they're moving more towards, I guess, and this may kind of like annoy me to a certain extent, but they're moving more towards like trying to appeal to the largest demographic they can, which basically means what they might call kid friendly or family friendly entertainment, away from the original business model where it was like, okay, you have a video recording device, you have internet connection, go ahead and start a channel and record your videos as long as it's not, as long as you're not making death threats against someone or making really explicit content, you can basically have your channel, and the irony is, of course, that for a lot of folks, I think, at least the ones I follow, if they're talking about that topic, I'm going to call it that topic, they're most likely not getting into anything truly explicit, per se. Um, but, it's kind of like skirting the edge because it's like, okay, yeah, I'm talking about how I'm not doing X, and X is explicit. I'm not doing X explicit thing, or I'm not watching X explicit content, or whatever, But then again, I'd say that if you're on this whole journey of sorts, like there should come a point in your journey where like for instance, if what you're talking about, it shouldn't be so much the I'm not doing X. It's more like I'm doing this other stuff with my life. I'm working on myself. I'm working on my issues, my problems, the goals that I have for my life, the education I'm trying to get, the job I'm trying to get, how I'm trying to lose weight. You're supposed to be moving on to other topics, um, and kind of focusing in on that. But not sure what I really wanted to talk about. I stayed up until 3 a.m. at the engineering building last night. I read two chapters, one out of my biochem textbook, one out of my thermo textbook. In my biochem class right now, I'm like two chapters ahead. I'm basically trying to cover all the chapters that we're going to have in the next exam, so I'm not like, caught out in the open, so to speak, again. I had to cram for the last couple exams, and I don't want to do that anymore. I know I can pass these classes doing that, but I don't want to do that anymore. It's at that point where, like I said, if I have like one or two good semesters in a row, I get through this semester, do well, get the next semester, do well, especially if I retake like the two or three classes I can still retake, and I get A's in those. I mean, it's gonna be like a 180-degree turnaround in my life, and in terms of like my GPA, the opportunities I have, etc., etc. And I need that. I need that. With my academic career, as it's concerned, with future career as an engineer, future educational opportunities, finances, etc. I need that turnaround, and that means I need to have a fundamental shift in my mentality and my paradigm of thinking and living and acting and such. And I mean, if I can start off accomplishing that by, I don't know, do something as mundane as reading a few chapters ahead in the textbook, or um, getting up early in the morning as opposed to sleeping all day, or whatever, and going out for a run, doing push-ups every day, crunches every day, whatever. Something as mundane as that to start that whole ball rolling, then that's what I gotta do. Um, but what could I talk about that's really changed recently? Other than that, it's more of a repeat of previous topics. But I guess the biggest thing that I've noticed, and I went back to that chemical engineering club room where they have computers there, people study. Most I think all the folks who were there these last like few times I've been there were from the senior class. So they were folks that I had classes with, but then when I got put behind by a year, they moved on to the next year. Now they're graduating this semester, and this is the second semester of my junior year. As far as like coursework is concerned, but I essentially revealed to them how I passed those classes and what grades I got and that sort of thing. And I definitely noticed like a shift in their perception and attitude towards me. Like they had some, there's some level of friendliness and like respect. I'm sure a lot of it is the fact that they're just happy that this is their last semester and they're graduating and they're moving on. Um, but there was definitely a shift in perception there, and of course, that I was just sitting there reading and I wasn't really doing anything other than just putting in the time, that sort of thing. That sort of thing. Um, it's a little bit of a change there that I see. Like I make these efforts, and the right people will notice. The right people will notice, and their perceptions will change. And if their if their perceptions do not change, and they still treat me like I'm that uh, undisciplined, out of control, spastic, weirdo loser, whatever, from a year or 2 years ago, well, then they're obviously not the right kind of folks to be around. And I shouldn't really be too concerned about their opinions of me, insofar as they're not like my boss or something like that. Um, but I guess, let's see, what else? What else? Just kind of a ramble, I guess you could say. I'm not really too clear on, you know. I guess I just haven't really been focusing on these videos so much and just not thinking, okay, well, episode X should be about topic Y and things of that nature. It's more like more like just me sorting out my life, and um, I do not know if I mentioned this in another video, but um, one thing that I've started doing. This is actually part of like magical work, and also you know uh, making changes in my life on top of the other stuff that I've been doing. I I know that with the Goetia, for instance, and I think I did talk about this, but it's um it's kind of an interesting exercise. It's kind of stuck with me on a both intellectual, mental, emotional level. But um, I have a table of correspondences for the different spirits of the Goetia, and something that I did, which is kind of an interesting little exercise. Um, the different classes of spirits are associated with different incense and colors and so on, and I ended up uh, like I had a candle which is dragon's blood, scented it as dragon's blood oil in it, essential oil, and I burned that on my desk. I lit that, and the scent kind of spread across the room, and I sat there listening to David Hikes and the harmonic choir, Curie fragments, and then harmonic meditations while I flipped through the Ars Goetia. This hold on a second. This grimoire. the one that's like it's like the, I guess it's the original translation, but I went through that and I'd found the spirits that I specifically been wanting to conjure in relation to certain goals of mine in my life, and I sort of did a meditation of sorts on like what I really wanted out of that and why I wanted that and how they related to my own psyche and life and sort of I sort of use it as a psychological self study as opposed to literally evoking or invoking the said spirits or influences, and it just kind of changed my perspective on a lot of stuff. Since you can look at the different elements, the different spheres of existence, whether you call them Lataifi Seta, six subtleties, or the 10 Sephiroth, seven chakras, or whatever. Um, and the different associations, the incense and colors and metals and such, is like representing different levels of your psyche, of your mind, and or your spiritual being. And I kind of noticed an interesting like observation that the ones that are associated with the more like let's say the planet Mars and conflict, revenge, whatever, um, they're obviously placed lower on that. So I on that whole schema, and so then I kind of shifted from since meditating upon the earls and counts of the Goetia, and specifically the ones that I was considering evoking, to higher ranked ones like the dukes, and I sort of noticed a change in my perception. I was looking at the same problem with the same goal from like a higher moved perspective, and I kind of shifted in my mental emotional state from wanting revenge or conflict or things of that nature to more like thinking about reconciliation with different folks, or um, becoming more and more just like, I wouldn't say obsessed, but concerned with, let's say, seeking out knowledge of a certain subject or so. And that's when I think that's when I came to that conclusion that the real way to like win or overcome obstacles was really to succeed in my life. And I don't mean that in a sort of obvious sense of, well, yeah, success is overcoming obstacles. I mean it more in a in an indirect sense. Like I overcome obstacles, let's say, in my education or in terms of gaining an internship or a job or something of that nature, and then that success reverberates out into other aspects of life. So maybe it causes folks to like reassess me in their perceptions of me. They see that I'm far more serious, mature, disciplined, mentally stable, approachable, workable, etc. And they see that because, okay, well, this guy's obviously got his act together because his GPA obviously went up. He did very well in his classes. He was able to land this internship. He did the internship for 3 to 4 months, the full term, and maybe they want to hire him after graduation. He made his money, etc., etc. And it changes that perception of you. Hopefully, assuming that the right kinds of folks, ones who actually like think on that on those on that level, because it's also a reflection of who they are, not just you, but who they are. If they change their perception of you as they gain new knowledge or facts about you, if they hold on to their old opinions of a subject or a person, regardless of new facts that would disprove those opinions or beliefs, then there's obviously there's something else going on there that has to do with them and not with you or the subject itself. But if they change with those new facts, then it's like, okay, you can have some respect, I guess, for their intellect and their maturity and so on, and you see them as being more workable or easy to work with. Um, so before I get back to reading and doing my work, I think the last thing I really wanted to talk about, as I've gone on with this video, like my thoughts have become more concrete. But one thing I realized recently, and it was just like actually just today, like right before I recorded this video, was it had to do with Jordan B. Peterson and um, sort of. I was watching this video. It was like talking about his whole interview with Kathy Newman and then the whole Me Too movement and so on. And the point they hit off on that really like struck me was kind of like the whole why he's been able to quote unquote get away with speaking out, being outspoken for so long. And it's because for the longest time, like some other figures, he hasn't backtracked or backwalked or whatever you want to call, walk back on various things, points he's made. He hasn't necessarily apologized. Excuse me. And there's a certain amount of respect that comes with that you really stick to your guns, and if you do that, then folks, they respect the fact that you, at the very least, you have conviction. And maybe you have convictions in those beliefs or whatever those positions because they must be true. Otherwise you wouldn't be so convinced of them. And relating that to my own life, I think one of the biggest mistakes I've made over the last like year, maybe the last several months, really, last several months was that I not only had regrets about how I dealt with that girl and some other folks in those classes, but I expressed that regret. And maybe what I said or did wasn't the right thing. Maybe it wasn't, but it's kind of like once you make the decision to go do something, it's kind of like you have to stand by it. In I'd say the majority of cases, there are some cases where obviously like you apologize and making amends is necessary, and it is in of itself it is in and of itself a sign of maturity and correctness and such. But then there are those cases where I say like, barring some like extreme like action or words or so, I don't know if it's the mark of being a man or being an adult, but it's kind of like you have to stand by those things insofar as you face the consequences of them and not try to backtrack and, oh well, I figured this person doesn't like that because of whatever, or there's all these bad consequences to it. I'm going to try to avoid the consequences by saying I'm so sorry, for whatever it was that I said or did, and that's what really, I think, backfired on me, because, for instance, with that girl, it was kind of like the whole sort of, oh, now he regrets, rejecting me because I have this new guy. Oh, I'm going to go and, um, I'm going to take him to task for that, and get my vengeance against him because, he's opening himself up, making a target, that sort of deal. And, it's carried on to a certain extent to the present day, and that's something that I just have to, I have to not repeat, It's not that I should never apologize for things, but it's kind of like it has to be selective, and it has to be in cases where I was clearly wrong, not where it was a matter of, oh, well, I'm regretting that because I see that, I shouldn't have turned down that opportunity, and now I'm regretting turning down the opportunity to, I don't know, work at a given place, or date a certain girl, or go on a trip to some place, or whatever the case may be. It's like, it's kind of like I made my decision, standing by it, and for better or for worse, I'm going to face the consequences. It's a whole sort of deal with like having integrity and conviction. Like if you're going to make a decision in your life to go pursue something, like you just should go for it. And come what may, be willing and able to face the consequences if they're positive or negative. Like don't backtrack on things just because, oh well, it turned out that was the wrong decision to make, and now I'm having to, take a lot of flack. It's like, well, like if you're going to speak out on some subject, be prepared for people to not agree with you, and be prepared for, you lose perhaps some friends or take some flack in certain situations. It's part of that whole process of life, especially if you're trying to rise up in some sort of dominance hierarchy, or in your job, your school, your field of study. There's going to be resistance. There's going to be obstacles. There going to be obstacles, and you just gotta expect it, and stand by your actions. Don't try and hide behind apologies that are obviously fake. or apologies that, like in the case of Jordan Peterson, make it seem like the accusations of the opposite side are actually true. Like, oh, this guy's really whatever. He's really got, a army of trolls out there waiting to attack anyone who criticizes him, or, this guy really was a jerk, he didn't just, not want to get toyed with by some person or so. That's why he was like that. And oh, I was the innocent bystander, and what I said was true, accusing him because look, he's apologizing for it now. So anywho, get this chapter done. I'll be 3 chapters ahead of my biochem class, and then if I'm going to probably going to rewrite my to-do list because I think I expected to get more done yesterday, but it was just like I got started late and I was extremely tired and I had to like chuck some energy drinks and um, that's pretty much it. Oh, one little note I wanted to make is that um, for like magical or evocation related reasons, I've been eating vegetarian food consistently. I think I had one slice of it was like chicken pesto pizza, like I don't know, a few days ago. It was like my one little like mistake or break or whatever with the vegetarian diet, but I'm kind of changing over to that for a while. Eventually get to the point hopefully where I can make the vegetarian food for myself, so it'll fit in with the whole magical evocation requirements that you have to make the food yourself, and as you're vegetarian, and you have to um, through consuming that abstain from meat and animal products or whatever, or meat basically for so many days. But um, I've been noticing a change in my metabolism and um, my state of mind to a certain extent. Just not consuming meat all the time and all the salt and whatnot. But yeah, today it was pad ki mao, which is a Thai dish. I just got it with vegetables. It's like this stir fried noodles and then vegetables on top of that. So anywho, enough of my rambling. It's 22 minutes of rambling, and I would like to get to studying. So I'll see you folks around. Thanks for the likes, the comments, and the subscriptions. And good luck with your efforts in life, whether it relates to the topic or it relates to other things in life. I'll see you folks around. Thanks for watching. Bye.